You have dared to knock on the door. The door is open.
Welcome, Darksorcery. I'm Alfredo Martinez, and I have with me, once again, Blairfox. Blair, it's good to have you back on.
I am happy to be here, my friend. I can't wait to see what we're getting into today.
Yeah, it was an interesting discussion last time. One thing I did want to get your opinion on is that in some of your TikTok videos, you post some pictures with ancient technology, you know, and so as far as the ancient technology and the ancient alien theory goes, what is your take on all that?
So it didn't start with, like me knowing that certain modern technology is reflections of old ones. I've
Yeah.
always had more of a skill. It's more of an affinity than a skill, but I've always been able to deduce and notice correspondences in things. And I'd always been attracted to the Egyptian Ankh, and there's a lot of things I've learned about it, even every day. You learn something new about the Ankh every day as you go on. But eventually, I had found that photograph that you're referring to with the Tesla oscillator next to it, and I thought it was very peculiar that the formation looked almost exactly like the Egyptian Ankh. I mean, today, I had eventually come across some information relating to piezoelectric material, which led into a theory that basically was showing me that I was holding information relating to ancient Egyptian tools. If you go on Etsy right now and you look up like Egyptian priest staff, and you'll see something that's got like an ankh and a jet and a hook on it. And the one thing these people are missing to actually make it real is a certain degree of piezoelectric materials inside the structure. And, like I said, it's my ability to see correspondences. Sometimes I find out about things that I'm not even aware that is actual knowledge that I'm holding on to, that I find out as I go on in the future with constant research.
Well, I mean, as more discoveries are made through archaeology, and more breakthroughs are made in technology, it's easy to see how a lot of lore, a lot of writings can have that comparison to technology that we have now. Now, I'm not saying I'm for or against that I believe or don't believe the ancient alien technology theory. I believe it's very much possible. Like there's different ways you can always look at it. Like take for instance, in the Bible when it describes certain angels having multiple eyes all over the place. Well, and they're flying around. Well, you can look at that as a drone nowadays. What does a drone do? It's got eyes all over. It flies around, and it could very well give you messages. You know what I mean? But at the same time, there are beings. Go ahead.
I want to comment on that. Like,
yeah,
you have no idea how hilarious that is. So if you're an advocate for Carl Jung, I personally believe there is subtle evidences that we're all connected through a collective consciousness. Now, the irony in what I just said is, I don't know if I mentioned this last time, but if you refer to a manual called Morals and Dogma, it's a manual made for a 33-degree Mason, and you're looking for the copy specifically from 1942. As you flip through the pages, approaching your approach to reading this from multiple different angles and lenses, you will eventually notice that there is kind of an insinuation behind the demiurge being some kind of quantum computer. And if you correspond that to certain initiation systems, you can see where certain occult cultures got the idea of the demiurge being a blight, because the actual gatekeepers were the planetary systems, were the Anunnaki consciousnesses themselves. But, in the Tree of Life, you don't have people calling on the Anunnaki until you touch the Necronomicon. You've got people calling on the angels. And now this book is basically calling them quantum Trojan horses.
Everything flows out and in. Everything has its tides. All things rise and fall. Rhythm compensates. Can you explain that a bit more?
Yeah, that's one of the Hermetic principles. That's the Hermetic principle of rhythm. Or vibration.
Yeah, that stood out to me for a reason. Yeah, I want to get your take on that statement right there.
So the Hermetic principles are essentially the foundation behind how to use your mind. It's the foundation for thinking, the foundation for philosophy, psychotecture, anything. This is usually the system that a child needs to learn by the time you're experiencing yourself in fourth grade science class. This is what they should have been teaching you, because it's the contemporary pseudoscience that they have subjugated people to. The reason why when they try to think on this magnitude, most of them go insane. That whole book is basically, believe it or don't, follow these principles and the secrets of life will open to you. And
Yeah,
there's only seven.
and
There's a law of,
go ahead.
there's the law of mentalism, the law of polarity, vibration, correspondence, cause and effect, and gender.
Right. Now, as far as the hermetic principles go, I am familiar with some of them, but I admit I need to brush up on my knowledge of that, and it's been so long since I've read those. You know what I mean? But yeah, especially.
I had a lot. Sorry. I had a lot of different copies of the Kabbalion in my progress, and the best content release version is probably titled The Hermeticism Collection by Manly P. Hall.
Mm. Yeah, the hermetic principles are very thought provoking, and very true when thought of for a while and meditated on. But it's just incredible stuff. Now, you had also mentioned Janus,
Yes.
the concept of the Janus, the two-headed God is us. Now, when I bring up Janus, it reminded me of the tarot card, the Wheel of Fortune, because on the Wheel of Fortune some time ago there was a card that had Janus on it. Now, according to Aradia, the triple goddess, they spin the lives of men while Lucifer turns the wheel. Lucifer has been synonymous with Janus in some writings. The two-headed means past and future. Now, according to the witches of Florence, you had to pray for him, to him for luck. You know, Janus or Jano, which is another name, another way of saying the name. But when you say that the two-headed Janus, the concept of the Janus, the two-headed God is us, can you explain that a bit more?
Yeah, so it was more of an insinuation than a literal deduction. I'm sure you're referring to the video where I claimed I found a deep secret about the twin flames.
Right.
A lot of that information came from a channeling when I was subjected to a person with a higher frequency. And it was like just areas of my brain started opening up. There were things I was tapping into that didn't exactly fit with logic, so I had to use intuition. I was flip-flopping and different things I'd never experienced before. But I came to the conclusion between one's light projection and one's inner shadow, the conscious and the subconscious. It's two hemispheres, right? And the secret is you have to learn cohesion before you open up to the fourfold access. And so the moment humanity recognizes how to make use of their inner light and their inner shadow at the same exact time, you become as the Janus with two faces looking in two different directions. One part of you writes the story, the other part of you acts the hang on the theater concept, the acting out, the charade, right? And it's very similar to our approach to ritual, right? We have to basically seduce the subconscious to manifest everything around us. That's one method of making use of the shadow. We're just not making use of it as an internal mental faculty.
Well, that's basically what you're doing when you're doing magic. I mean, you are manipulating the subconscious, you know what I mean, in order to bring about a change in the conscious world. Yeah.
Yes. The kicker, though, is I never saw it as quantum psychology. I always thought that the word magic was synonymous with learning how to tap into our, higher atomic faculties. Taking essence from some of the electrons in our body, producing, fire or whatever from your hands, like actual shit. There's even I forget where I got this from, but there's one program that was basically talking about the history of the use spells, and apparently, come to find out, there's a kind of music scale that used to exist that's really hard to find now, probably because of the burnings. And this music scale taught us how to make certain influential vibrations. this goes into, how the CIA knows so much about situational design and how they somehow wound up with technology that can influence people with frequency. It's really
Yeah,
fascinating stuff.
yeah, it is. Now, back to the Hermetic principle where it says all things rise and fall, rhythm compensates. It's, looking at that, it's amazing when you see how much we're discovering in the scientific field as far as rhythm goes. Vibrations on how that affects everything at such a subatomic level. And it seems like we're almost to the point to where these magic and science, magic and technology are sort of merging, at least on the at least on the surface, as far as the understanding of what occultists have been saying for years and years and years, and what we're discovering now about science books and technology.
Yeah. One of the greatest things that always fascinated me is, and it's probably because of reading the principles, but it took me a long time to realize that human evolution, it's not going to take thousands of years. It's just going to take until we realize how this works. And we can get to that level, dude, we can get to that level in like 2 weeks flat. And all it takes is knowing how to make full awareness of the human mind. All it really takes to come to the right answers is to not approach what you're looking for from a prerequisite from any system. You look at it in the principles of finding an answer, and then you ask the question. You go look for the answer. The answer itself applies to the expansion of what you think you know about said system.
Mm-hmm. Right. Now, something that you had said, it says if first of all, I want to talk a little bit about the twin flames that you were talking about. You said the twin flames hold the keys to unlocking the full potential of your God force in your soul. Now,
Yes.
yeah, go ahead and explain that a bit more in what your interpretation is of the twin flames.
Well, so the only I can speak on what I know about the God Force because I've tapped into mine twice in my whole life, and I knew it was incomplete because tapping into what this experience did, the kind of balance that it gave my body, the capacity that this state allowed for in my mind, it was temporary. And, something like this is something that you should become. And that's where I kind of just put the pieces together just by the implications of what the twin flame is, right? And the twin flame is supposed to be quite literally the other half of your soul, whereas a soulmate are individuals you've experienced matrimony with in past lives, and then you have karmatic souls, which are all the souls that you hurt in past lives. And but the twin flame is actually the other half of you, just like when it talks about the hermetic law of gender, and gender manifests in all things, right? And part of that is I'm incarnated into a masculine body, but this aspect of me is probably the feminine component of the soul that we could probably call Astraeus, and she's most likely the masculine. But that's not to say in the implication that our viewers are probably looking at it in, because based on the information I tapped into, there's also the degree that her patterns would probably be significantly more feminine than mine, but the approach to those patterns would probably be very masculine. Because I had also made the connection that the twin flames are also the representative projectors of each hemisphere in the mind. Now I have my hemisphere works with information comes in through the right and it comes out through the left. But technically, what the world sees is a person who's compensating using logic, even though that's not the way it is with me. But you could say I'm probably the left, and she's probably the right, because what information I've gained about her so far is that she's basically somebody who speaks and behaves in a very, very subconscious manner. And that's kind of getting the information on her is what unlocked the rest of it for me in the first place. It's just, thinking the who, the what, the when, the where, and the why. And, I went through the motions.
Now, what would you say to those people who say, "Well, I really don't believe in twin flames. I really don't think they're a thing"? It's just, it's nonsense. What would you say to those people?
Well, to most instances of denial, it is definitely rooted in some kind of trauma, probably even anger. But for the people that need to hear this, whether or not you believe in the twin flames and whether or not you're destined to meet yours is kind of irrelevant. Only souls with destinies are ever going to meet their twin flames. However, to the people that have met their twin flames for whatever reason, the only reason it never lasts is exactly because of what I just said. The implication of the crazy and the responsibility, even. I mean, that's huge. I started to shake a little bit. I'm kind of scared too. So,
Right on, man. Yeah. I don't know. It's crazy. You got probably half people believe in it, half people don't. But it's interesting to, what both sides have to say about that.
people don't people don't want to believe that there are so many things outside of their field of understanding. Like, look at how many of us identify ourselves as a singular entity. How many of us say I? Yet we are comprised and made of billions upon billions of cells. Take that even further, and there's bigger threats out there than demons and government officials. We have parasites as small as a microbiome that can exist in your bodies for years without activating. It can exist right underneath the surface, imitate the way you behave and stuff, but I'm the only entity that exists and I'm in full control of myself. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I mean, even once you go smaller to a subatomic level, the laws of physics do not apply, and it just gets more confusing from that point on.
I've got another one for you. Recently, I was doing research on my natal chart, and thanks to the practice of magical evocation by Franz Barton, I found out that there are certain spirits that actually hold influence over your stargates. So that means a small piece of your personality is under subtle influence at all times.
I wouldn't doubt that at all. Especially in the time we're living in right now.
Yeah,
So,
I agree.
But you said something that was interesting. It said you can make use of your shadow when you can tailor your words and your actions to objectively equal a symbolic theme.
Yes, that's what I was mentioning earlier.
Let's talk about that a bit.
Sure. Okay, so tailoring your words. If you've ever been in the practice of psychedelics or been around a community of psychonauts, you'll know that they have a skill of applying words in a multi-contextual manner, and they can string multiple of them to actually, allow you to tap into paradigms or see things that you wouldn't normally. And you can gain a lot of insight on this on the metaphor of the Mad Hatter in Alice in Wonderland. Like that book, from an adult's perspective, is quite interesting indeed. Like, how does a story open your eyes to so much? And so if you notice, you can actually use the Alice in Wonderland analogy to open up what I was insinuating on how you have to tailor your words with your actions to equal the simple.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, some of this is more conscious than subconscious, but I had been a catalytic symbol for people for years. The way that my emotions, flip-flop, the way that I make use of those, how I interact with people, the fact that I'm never not running my mouth. And so it's the archetypification of how you personalize yourself, I suppose, that would have a lot to do with this. But exactly as I had insinuated earlier, right? Because we're always talking and we're always acting. And so when you find out how to do that symbolically while you're implying this literally, that is the key to activating both sides of yourself at once. And I mean, we're at the threshold right now where it's like, indeed, how do we begin to do this?
Mm-hmm.
I
thought that was interesting. You said, focusing on a symbolic theme. It's, and you mentioned about your words. I mean, it's just so eye-opening how powerful words are. Even if you just change your speech just a little bit and how you say things, it's amazing how things around you can change.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Now that's the magic of how words really create reality. when you're able to speak a word by its implied definition, and the definition of the word being implied, and all the different ways, all the different angles, you've got literalism, metaphor, your symbolism, all those words of grammar are different implications to how a word can be used, and the different angles. Once you figure out how many ways you can say one word and it impact with 1,000 meanings, now you're getting somewhere. And to the people who I've only experienced real unbridled magic, things that it changes you when you actually see it. But it's only happened to me a handful of times. There are certain people that have already figured out how to live, in this kind of world. And it's those people that'll be the first ones to tell you that once you reach that level, everything becomes about the word defined as it's spoken.
You had said something about Universe B. Universe B is living out the identity through the subconscious, where your words, actions, and even your behaviors are for and of the end of the subconscious.
Yes. Well, I meant to say to the end,
Right.
Implying like a means that you're doing this to figure something out.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had heard Universe B. The first time I ever heard that term was from Universal Mastery. However, what it implied, the secret of what it implied, I wasn't aware that I already knew about it, just because of things I experienced back in 2020. And so it's the term itself comes from Kenneth Grant's work, and it apparently there are two aspects to living in a universe, and universe A is the collective around you that's living through their consciousness, outliving through their ego. But most people that figure out how to pool energy and how to exist in our side of things actually wind up figuring out, after cohesion, how to put their seed of identity into their subconscious. This is probably also why they even created the law of silence, because they probably tailored themselves to only speak when they could insinuate the highest impact. Probably. I mean, I can vouch for this because I have a degree of neuroplasticity where I can tap into the surface of what looks like wearing different kinds of personalities and being able to be depersonalized, experience using anger or experience using femininity or something like that. It really starts to open up, because it's like you're outside of your own body looking in. And when you get to this level, it's kind of like observing yourself. And that's when you can kind of see the impact that this Universe B stuff is talking about.
Yeah, there's so much mystery to the subconscious, but for those who don't know that our subconscious is connected with everything that ever was, and then there's a way to do that. If people just understood that, on accessing that and making some changes, I think the world would be a much different place. I mean, the people make it just so complicated, the way they react to things.
Yeah, I mean, we were once those people too, though.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember when I was 16. I mean, I was smart, but I was so afraid of everything. And I don't know how it works with everyone else, but for me, fear is just the mechanism that's there for the duration that I don't understand how things work. Once I do, oh man.
Yeah. Right on, man. So now, as far as your magical practice, your magical study, what area of occultism did you focus most of your energies on studying?
So
Your
just
life?
real talk and just being direct. Um, there's a dynamic that has a lot to do with divine irony, right? And what you find is based on what your intention is. I didn't wake up one day and was like, I want to know the secrets of the universe. I went through traumatic gate after traumatic gate until I basically blew the fuck up, and I was like, I will find power, and there will be nobody that stops me. And apparently, that was the invitation for me to obtain the symptoms of all this different occult wisdom that I never asked for.
Mhm.
So it's funny
Be
because
careful what you say. Yeah.
yeah, so most people that are like, I want occult wisdom, usually find themselves in similar but opposite situations, right? You know, I say I want power, I found all this occult wisdom. But there's more irony to it because only so many years later do I realize that I am on a path to finding that power. The articulation behind my intention specifically opened the doorway where I have all these different answers that are being obtained in all these different categories that in any other circumstance I would have never found. And so I guess my occult practice became ripping through these systems to find the secrets of sorcery. And I'm doing a really good job of that. Um, I do practice many different mantras.
Mhm.
If I had more money to my name, I'd probably incorporate a lot of different approaches to sorcery into something like Tai Chi. Um, but there's probably going to be a point where I incorporate something like, like wushu in Chinese, where they have like the blade dances.
Yeah.
Incorporating something like that with like Tai Chi and, your initiatory meditation states, being able to enter certain states that transcend the sexual state or the Sigma state. The Sigma state is when you become so focused that everything around you looks like it's slowing down. But I want to know my full potential. I want to see how far this goes. Um, if I was in any kind of coven right now, I think I said this last time, I'd be with the hedge witches. The shamanic approaches to witchcraft, the interactions with the plant medicines, and the multi different approaches to different forms of consciousness. I
Mhm.
really There's an intimacy about that you can't really do anything except respect. I really like that.
Now, I want to get your take on this. I had mentioned this to a couple other guests before, but the theory that when you do drugs, it alters the vibration of your brain, and you tend to get glimpses into other planes, glimpses of beings you're not supposed to see. You know what I mean? And sometimes people get freaked out, especially people on hard drugs. You know what I mean? Do you think people doing drugs get glimpses of other planes and other beings?
Yes, but it's circumstantial. So, right, the one, right, if you're not in this lifestyle, that's the barrier that's being broken down is actually the threshold of the point of spiritual psychosis. You are speeding up the destiny point of tapping that threshold when you deteriorate. And the deterioration isn't actually from the drug itself, but it's the wanting disregard for yourself that then puts you in the position of obtaining certain drugs that probably aren't even made the right way and probably laced with, God and goddess knows
Who
what.
knows what? Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's the act of you poisoning yourself. Because if you're doing something that's completely clean and it's exactly what it says it is, or even if it's a plant-based consciousness, then if there's parts of you that have your health declining, probably because you didn't diet or you didn't do your exercise or something like that. But in most of these cases, they're actually poisoning themselves. These aren't people that woke up one day and was like, I want to experience life like Da Vinci. I want to evaluate myself under these things. No, they're like, oh, I want to kill myself. I want to run away from myself. I just want to die. Well, congratulations. You got exactly what you asked for.
Hmm.
And so, maybe the possibility of their mental barriers being broken down in the process of speeding up their threshold point is probably their subconscious, the point of their own separation, trying to show them a little bit about what and who they really are and what it's really about. And maybe the consciousness in rejection is probably where all that trauma comes from, more than likely.
Consciousness and rejection, not wanting to face reality and take responsibility in a lot
Yeah.
of cases. Yeah,
Yes.
that's exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
So, I mean, because I've known some people who've been on hard drugs and let's say they've been up for days and they're so depressed, they want to kill themselves, they're getting ready to slit their wrists. And then right before they do it, they turn their head and they see a demon just waiting to take them. You know what I mean? And they freak out and they're like, oh, I don't want to kill myself now. Like you've heard that story before from people too, right?
Yeah. Um, well, one of the lessons we've learned from that is, as you said, oh, I don't want to kill myself. So now, are they afraid of death, or were they really just telling themselves that they want a new phase in life? They want to release themselves from the falsities around them, even though they're the ones living falsely.
Yeah, I mean, the more that they reject reality, the worse it's going to be for them. But I mean, it just it comes it's going to come to a head point where you gotta do something. But your main deity is Hecate, and
Yes.
so yeah, so how is your life focusing on Hecate right now, and how is she moving in your life?
Well, I believe, I don't know to what degree, but I believe a certain level of symbiosis has been achieved with me and her energy.
Yeah,
It's very interesting because in what I've gathered from my past lives, I've always been a druidic kind of shaman. I mean, I saw a past life, little glimpses where I was apparently some kind of liaison for a Salem witch coven. That opened up doors for other information, but we can save that for later. I experienced being an alchemist back when um, Brazil or High Brazil and Sky were the same island. I've seen a lot, and in all of this, I wasn't exactly a devotee, and I wasn't exactly a Sybil either. But the word agent definitely fits. It was like I just lived in some kind of relationship where I knew she was within me, and I knew that I was acting on behalf of her work. And the more of this that I remember, it feels more than like a mother or a teacher or a sister. It feels like she's quite literally a part of me. There's a lot of people that can vouch and say that sometimes her energy leaks out of me a lot. I mean, I get very older brother when it comes to how to properly give respect to this magic as a living essence. Um,
mm,
and like, yeah, I do initiations and rituals. I will, bust my ass on her holidays and stuff like that. But more often than not, it seems like the moment that she decided to reclaim me back when I was 19, that everything around me, the good, the bad, all the humanness of it all, is actually this big 5D road that everything is leading me to something. Like, I really believe that. I mean, we talked about how I hope that one of my great achievements in life is to create an arcane order of knights. I believe that I'm going to reach that point, probably in by the time I'm 40 or something. But I see that by the time I reach that point, I will have learned a great lesson that only Hecate herself could bring to me.
mm,
You know,
yeah,
it's a very interactive experience, and I learn more about what I'm a part of every day.
right on, man. It seems like TikTok is the main app that you're constantly active on.
Yeah,
It
I was convinced to start making videos by a guy named Real Black Magician 1311.
yeah,
And he wound up being my trusted source for black magic, just because the circumstances in his life put him in a situation where he is definitely a spiritual representative in all the right ways. And he convinced me to start making videos. And before then, I was just this fucking, oh my god, don't even pull up my YouTube. It was terrible.
right.
And so all the videos, the interactions, the views, started this path where I started to get better and better and better. And as you know, my content quality blew up tremendously after the recent wave of spiritual content leaders, fell from grace. And suddenly I find myself with all the mental energy and emotional capacity and everything I need to start making content that's actually worth watching. Like, even me, I'm going back and I'm rewatching shit that I made. Like, holy shit, this is
Yeah,
good.
it's some thought provoking stuff for those who haven't checked out your TikTok page, and it looks like we got TikTok back. It was gone for like what, like 10 hours, and then all of a
12
sudden
hours.
it's yeah, it's back now. I'm guessing it's back for good. I don't know to what extent it's going to be altered or what, but But it looks like we got it back. I was thinking about shutting down the Dark Sorcery TikTok page and starting up somewhere else on another platform. But it looks like I'm going to keep it going. It looks like you're still active on it, you know, just back to like you didn't miss a beat, you know? So that's pretty cool.
For some reason, you know, I found myself subconsciously just leaving it downloaded. I don't, know why. But, 24 hours later, I click on it and I see these notifications and I'm like, what? And so I pull it back up and it's back. I'm like,
It's back, yeah.
Because I spent 24 hours doing a project where I tried to get a bunch of IT people to get me the source code. I'm thinking, well, if TikTok got shut down, but it didn't get bought out, then its rights haven't been taken. Therefore, we can copy the source page or the source code and bring it back up ourselves. Well, I wound up obtaining a file for how to clone websites. And so I was literally just getting to the point where I was going to upload that to my Patreon. Right. Suddenly it's back. I'm like, okay.
Right on, man. Cool. So, but yeah, everyone, thank you for your time. It's been a wonderful chat here. Everyone who's watching, make sure you check out Blair's social media links below in the video description, particularly his TikTok, which has some very interesting and thought-provoking content.
I recently uploaded or updated my TikTok, where the 3 greatest video features that I've made so far are, the first 3 videos you'll find.
The ones that you pinned, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and feel free to reach out to me with any questions. The more empirical, the better.
Right on. So yeah, check out all that stuff. Make sure you check out Dark Sorcery on TikTok, Instagram, all our platforms. We just went up on Odyssey, so now we have an Odyssey channel up. Make sure you check that out. Yeah, everyone who's watching, like and subscribe to Dark Sorcery.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome.